Hey guys, Chris Cook in Nashville here. Hope you guys are having a good day. My wife is joining me today in the kitchen. She's going to help out with a little bit of a taste test in a minute. Today I have for you guys a fantastic comfort dish. This is going to be a good one. Guys, this is my carnivore chicken noodle soup. It uses the pasta that I just taught you guys how to use. Slight modification there, but basically the exact same thing. We'll tell you all about that, and the coolest thing about this is an easy recipe. You can do this in a crock pot. You can walk away from it like we were gone all day today, and this was just doing its thing, and it's ready to throw the pasta in when you come home. So it's a super easy thing for dinner, and you can freeze it, and you can keep it later on for meal prep, all kinds of things. And best of all, it uses the whole chicken, so you get all the benefits of that bone broth, which I know you really enjoy.
I love that.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. So, guys, let's take a look at it today. This is the carnivore chicken noodle soup.
Okay, folks, here is what we're going to need to do the chicken noodle soup. We have a whole chicken. One of the best things about this is you can get a whole chicken, which is usually a great price. I also have 8 cups of chicken broth. You can use whatever your favorite broth is, bone broth, any kind of clean chicken broth you want to buy, it's up to you. And then apple cider vinegar. This is optional, but it really does help this, not only flavor-wise, but it helps cook those extra nutrients out of the bones so that we basically get a bone broth. So we're going to take our whole chicken. I've patted it dry with some paper towels. Now I'm going to take extra paper towels and I'm going to set them off to the side here just in case we get things that are ready to be thrown away or need to be wiped down. We also need some kitchen shears and we need a nice sharp knife. So I'm just going to sharpen up my knife really quickly. Now, if you don't have kitchen shears, you can do this with a knife, but it does make it easier to have the kitchen shears, just a good pair of them. So on the chicken, this side right here, this is the breast meat. There's the breastbone and the legs on each side. Of course, you got the wings. And then we're going to flip it over here, and this is the back. Now, right up here is where the spine runs. This is what we're going to need the kitchen shears for because we're going to cut and remove the spine from the chicken. Okay, we want to save the breast meat and the legs and the skin and everything that comes from those, but there's going to be some things we're going to trim off, and we're going to take out that spine as well. You can see there's kind of like some loose fat here at the bottom. So I'm just kind of inspecting this chicken when they're whole like this. You just want to make sure there's not pieces of bones or weird things. Once you're confident that you're good, I'm going to come up here to the top. So there's where the neck is attached, and I'm going to feel down inside there. I can tell that's the spine running down the back of the chicken, and that's what we're going to have to cut out. I'm going to flip it over onto its back, and I'm going to inspect the cavity. You want to make sure that there's nothing inside the cavity, that there's nothing that has either accidentally been put up in there. Make sure it's clear. That's good to go. Okay, so I'm going to set it on its breast side so that the backbone is facing up. And I'm going to take my kitchen shears, stick them in through the top into the cavity, and I'm just going to cut through the back part of the rib cage down both sides of the spine. Now, these bones can be a little tough to get through. This is why you want a good pair of kitchen shears that you can also then take apart and clean really well, because we are cutting raw chicken here. But this is a really easy thing to do. It just takes a little pressure, but you can do it no problem. So just stick the scissors in there, and we're just going to clip right through the skin, right through those little soft bones on the backs of the rib cage. We just want to get that all cut out, and we're going to go right down through the chicken. Now there's the spine. Now here's why we did this. All these little spine bones right here, when you cook them, they all fall apart and they get in your chicken soup. You don't want that. But this is going to go in my chicken trimmings bag, because this is fantastic to make like a chicken bone broth or some other kind of chicken stock that we can then filter really well. Now you can see we can open up the cavity. We're going to check the cavity. I'm going to go through, find any like loose pieces, if there's fat or any trimmings that need to come out. I'm also feeling for sharp bones. If you feel one that's kind of loose, like it's just a little piece like this one, I can almost pull it out. But since it's stuck just a little bit, I'm going to grab the kitchen shears and go ahead and cut that free. But I'm going to go ahead and trim little pieces of bone like that away, just so that it doesn't end up in the final soup and somebody swallow it, okay? So just little pieces like that. If you find any of them that are loose, that are going to be easy to come off in the soup, you can just go ahead and trim those up. We're just going to go around the cavity and continue feeling. Now you're also going to come across things like this, where you have these big chunks of fat. Okay, if it's fat and skin and there's big chunks, you can just go ahead and trim that off. That's also going to go into the chicken trimmings bag so that we can get chicken fat and the amazing things for chicken broth. There's another little extra piece of skin. Now, a lot of the skin is going to go into this soup. I will show you how to put it in there and make it taste really good. But it is going to go into the soup. But if there's little extra hanging off pieces, we can kind of do that. And so I'm just going to feel around the rest of the cavity, make sure it's good. And then when it's done, we're ready to move on. Okay, so now I have the chicken laying on its open cavity side. I'm just continuing to trim some of this excess fat and skin just to make sure I have a clean and easy to work with chicken. See, this is just a really big chunk of extra skin and fat, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. You could totally leave that on there and cook it in, but I'm just going to put that into my trimmings bag. And once I have all of these trimmings done, then we can score the skin. So we're just going to get it all laid flat. And to make sure that this is flat and easy to work with, we lay it on its cavity and we're going to put some weight on it. I'm going to put my palms on it and put my body weight on it and push down, and you're going to crack the actual breastbone. You're going to hear it crack and everything's going to flatten out a little bit. This just makes the chicken easier to work with. And so you can see that bone in there. See how it's flexible now? It's because I actually broke through that cartilage and that bone. It just makes the chicken a little easier to work with. And now you can see how it lays a lot flatter. And I'm going to do the same thing to both of the wing joints, just mostly so that it's a little easier to lay it flat. Because when we put it in the crock pot, this is going to be very helpful so that it's just a little more flexible. It's a little easier to work with. It just makes things easier. Okay, so we're going to take our nice sharp knife now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score the skin. Now I'm going to do this because I want the broth to be able to get through that skin into the meat and down towards the bone. Okay, so I'm going to score the skin in some large slices like this. Now I'm not trying to cut too deep. I want to just cut through that skin a little bit, and you don't have to do this like crazy everywhere. This is just to help a little bit. And then you're going to see after I've scored the skin on the breasts and the thighs and onto the legs, then I'm going to take the tip of the knife and I'm actually going to poke down into the meat. This is going to create some small holes where that broth can work its way through, and specifically so the actual vinegar can get down towards the bones. That's going to help cook more of the minerals and the nutrients out of those bones, because we're cooking a whole chicken here and making bone broth essentially in the process of cooking this. So we're just going to poke down through everything, and there's our prepped chicken. Now all we need to do is put our chicken into a crock pot. If you don't have a crock pot, you can do this with a regular stock pot, simmer on low. But I'm going to use a crock pot. So we're going to take this, put it breast side down with that open cavity up. Okay, and I'm pushing down because I want to keep that down flat against the bottom, just so that it cooks as evenly as possible and it all stays covered. So we push that down in there. The chicken is ready to go. Then we're going to put about 2 to 3 tablespoons. I never measure. It doesn't really matter. You just need a little of vinegar in there. And then my 8 cups of chicken broth. And you can see that's really nice and fatty. Beautiful chicken broth. Use any kind of chicken broth you like. If you want to make your own, you want to buy some that's clean, it's entirely up to you. We're just going to use chicken broth. And now these are optional things, but it's just how I like to do it. I'm going to add probably about a half a teaspoon of dry mustard. I never really measure this. I just shake a little in there, and you're not going to taste this exactly. It's not going to taste like mustard. It's not that there's going to be anything mustard flavor about it. It just offers sort of a back note. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of red pepper, ground red pepper. Not much. I'm not trying to make this spicy, but just a little bit cooked over a long period of time is really, really nice. And then I'm going to put in just a little splash of some zero carb hot sauce as well, and that's for the same purpose. Okay, so this is now going to go into my crock pot. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stick the lid on this, and I'm going to set this on low. Now, I suggest you cook this, if possible, for at least 8 hours. I'm going to turn this on to low, let it cook for about 8 hours. You can do it 6 hours or maybe even a little less, but 8 is fantastic. So here we are 8 hours later. I'm going to lift the lid off. You see it's nice and steamy. You have this beautiful broth, and you have all this fat and these nutrients that are cooking out of the chicken. Now I have tongs and I have a spider. You need some kind of accoutrement you can slide underneath of it. Use those tongs to lift it out, because what we're going to do is lift this whole chicken out, let it drain, and you can see it is falling apart, tender and soft. That's why you need something like the spider to lift it out of there. So I'm just going to let it drain as much as possible, pull this out, and there's some pieces that fell off. Now I'm going to throw it onto the open cavity side on a cookie sheet, because here in a minute we're going to start pulling that skin off of it while it is still hot. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in, get those little pieces that I missed. You can see the wings literally just fell right off of this, and the legs are coming apart. Like, it's so soft. Now, while it is still hot, use the tongs and gently peel that skin away from the breast and the legs, and you can see these little pieces of this super soft chicken skin are going to come off. Now, this stuff is super high in collagen. It is very high in fat. It's so good for you, but it's not necessarily the most enjoyable thing just to eat by itself. So I'm just peeling these big chunks off, putting them in a separate bowl, because I'm going to show you how we can prepare these so that it mixes back into the soup. It actually becomes fantastic. It offers the really nice texture, but it doesn't feel like you're just eating slimy bits of skin. Fried chicken skin is great. Boiled chicken skin, not necessarily my favorite. So I'm going to peel the skin off of the breast, off of the thighs and the legs, and put that all in a separate bowl. Okay, now you can see there is lots of steam coming off of this chicken because it is still very, very hot. It has been cooked all the way through. It is nice and tender, but we need it spread out on this cookie sheet so that it can cool down, because you're going to have to be able to work with this with your hands. Okay, so I'm going to start taking these chunks of meat after I have pulled the skin off, put it into a bowl, and you can see I'm kind of moving it around, just making sure that I didn't miss any skin. And then I'm taking the tongs and I'm pushing, and I'm starting to gently break these pieces up. And this chicken is so soft, I can just push the tongs right through it. Just going to start breaking this up a little bit. That's going to let it start to cool. Flip the breast meat over, start to smash that a little bit. That's going to let that steam come out, and it's going to let your chicken cool down so that you can come back and actually handle it, because what we're going to do is tear this apart by hand. That way we know that there's no bones, there's no like hard pieces of crunchy collagen that aren't any good. So we're just going to let this sit here now and cool for a few minutes, and you can come back whenever you want. I have 6 egg yolks in a bowl. You don't have to do this, but man, is this good. Just add 6 egg yolks into your soup while it is hot. This is still on low, and I'm just going to whisk this really well. And these egg yolks are going to cook pretty quickly, but because they're mostly fat with just a little bit of protein binding them together, these mix in really nice, and they give a really nice thick texture to the soup, the same way that the flour in a typical noodle would, since we're not using those. Now, this is also optional, but I like adding about 2 to 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. It's not very much cream, but that little bit of dairy fat in there really softens the flavor of the chicken noodle soup. So again, it's totally optional. You do not have to do either the egg yolks or the cream, but for my money, this is the best way to make chicken soup like this, because it just makes it so silky smooth and balances out those flavors so unbelievably well. Okay, I'm going to put the lid back on, let that come back up to temp. About 20 minutes later, I'll come back, and now the chicken is nice and cool. It's still kind of lukewarm, I guess, but it's so cool that I can handle it. You see how the chicken just comes right off the bone? So all I'm doing is I'm pulling these pieces of chicken off the bone, and I'm using my hands to kind of tear and crush and smash these pieces of chicken, and then pulling out, you can see the little cartilage pieces that I dropped back onto the sheet there. I'm finding the little hard pieces we don't want to eat, and then I'm pulling the meat off, shredding it and smashing it with my fingers and putting it back into the broth. Okay, so you're just going to do this for this entire pan of chicken. Now, you want to be careful, because the thing with chickens is when they're butchered, sometimes the butcher does a great job, sometimes they don't necessarily, and you can get very sharp, small pieces of bone in chicken. And you might not necessarily know they're in there until you've cooked the whole chicken like this. And since we have to actually separate the meat from the bone, you want to make sure you don't get those sharp chicken bones in your soup. So take your time, Go through this. It's a little bit of a project, but I promise this is worth it because it is so much better than buying like pieces of pre-cut chicken. You can also get a lot better price on chicken by buying it whole like this, and you get all the benefit of having those extra nutrients in there from the bones cooking in that broth with that vinegar all day long, right? So I'm just taking, this is the dark meat, so these come off in like these great big chunks, and it's very tender, and we just kind of smash those up with thumbs. You can see the bone just literally falls right out of the meat. So the dark meat you have to be a little careful with because there's tendons and little bones that tend to stick inside the legs and the thighs, so you have to be a little bit more careful with the dark meat part of the chicken. Now the white meat, when you get to the breast, it basically comes off in these great big pieces, and there's not really a lot of bone associated with it comparatively. And there you can see, that's a really super clean chicken leg. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to get the rest of this done, keep separating out the bones from the carcass. They've already given up all of their nutrients, and they are going to make this broth not only super tasty, but healthy, mineral rich, nutrient rich, and it just tastes absolutely fantastic. And honestly, it makes you feel good. You know, if you're sick and you want to be able to do something for yourself to feel better, this is a great way to do it. Okay, once we have all of that in there, I'm just going to take my whisk and kind of stir that chicken meat in there. It breaks it up. Now, if you want bigger pieces of chicken, you don't have to break it up as small as I did. You can tear it in great big old pieces. I just like it kind of whisked up and beaten up. You can see it's all broken apart. I just think that's more like what I'm used to eating is chicken noodle soup. Okay, now we're going to take our chicken skin. That's been sitting there. You've been wondering what we're going to do with that, right? So we're going to take that, dump that out onto a cutting board, and then I'm going to grab my knife. And what we're going to do is we're going to run the knife through this. So I'm going to cut it on one angle like this, okay? And then after I've sliced through it that way, turn the knife 90 degrees, kind of stack it all up, turn the knife 90 degrees and cut it that way. And then this is the secret to making this so good. We're just going to chop, 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 and keep scooting it together and chop, chop, chop until we get what is almost like a pasty, crumbly mixture. And then that goes right into the soup. What's going to happen is all that collagen and skin, it's such little pieces, it's almost going to just like dissolve into the soup. And when you eat it, it's just juicy and rich and wonderful. Now here's my pasta noodles. If you haven't seen that, I'll link that below, how you make the pasta noodles. The only difference is I did it with 1/2 tablespoon less egg white powder, and then I sprinkled a little poultry seasoning over it. It just makes the noodles a little softer. So I dump them in to the hot liquid. I'm going to stir them in, and then I'm going to let them sit for about 8 to 10 minutes before we eat, and that is going to soften those noodles up. So I'm going to go get my wife to do a taste test. I'm going to set the lid on top, turn off my crock pot, and guys, it is dinner time.
Okay guys, there you go. That's how we make carnivore chicken noodle soup. Now, this has been sitting here for probably about 8 to 10 minutes with the noodles in the hot liquid. That's plenty to cook them. And I mean, you can see they're beautiful. They're holding together really well. So if there's any question about whether these noodles will hold up in a broth, there's the answer right there. So we're actually gonna serve some up, and we're gonna try it for you guys, especially my wife, because she hasn't actually had this. I've tasted it, but she has not. So we're gonna serve up some carnivore chicken noodle soup for you guys.
It smells really good.
It smells so good.
Yeah.
So one of the things you guys will notice is the noodles, if you see them in the video, have just a little bit of sort of a speckled look to them. I actually took just a little, this is totally optional, but I took just a little of a poultry seasoning, and I actually sprinkled a little poultry seasoning over top of them, so it gives it that kind of chicken, almost Thanksgiving-y poultry flavor. Just a little bit to the noodles, just sprinkled it right over top right before I put them in the oven, and I think that's going to make a huge difference. So there is some chicken noodle soup for my lovely wife, and she actually likes some sriracha style hot sauce in hers, so I'm going to let her doctor up her bowl of soup there while I get some for myself. And guys, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we do from time to time, and what I'll do is I will make a big batch of this like this. You know, whole chicken makes a lot of soup. As you can see, it's a whole large crock pot full. And then what we'll do is we'll portion it out into individual containers. we'll put this in the freezer, and then you can pull it out and you can heat this kind of stuff up, and you can have really quick meals on the fly, which is really, really nice for those busy nights when the family has a lot going on. Okay. So you can see the noodles are soft, and you can cut the noodles however you want. This is just kind of the size and length that we like our chicken noodle soup to have the noodles. So why don't you give it a try? Let me know what you think.
Awesome. Looks super good. Tastes, I'm sure, delicious. See. That was amazing. It's like Campbell's chicken noodle soup, but like way better. Like 100 times better. That is super, super good.
Like that?
I love that. Yeah. Super. The noodles are awesome in this too.
Yeah. So, guys, one of the things I did on the noodles, chicken noodle soup usually has very soft noodles because the noodle gets boiled in the soup usually, so they get way, way overcooked most of the time. If you buy the stuff that comes in a can, it's really overcooked. Yeah. So what I did was I put the noodles in, let them sit in that broth, and I let them get really soft. But the other thing I did is I removed about 1/2 tablespoon of the egg white powder from my pasta recipe, so it's just a little bit softer. And I did go ahead and include the cream, and that makes a big difference. If you make it just a little softer, when you bake them up, they come out just a little softer that way, a little more delicate to roll, so you just have to be a little more careful. But you don't even have to do it that way. If you want your noodles firmer, you can just do the original recipe, that's fine. But if you want them a little softer and a little more like that canned chicken noodle soup thing, or even that kind of homemade where it's been cooking all day with the noodles in it, you want more of that vibe, just soften the noodles up just a little bit more. So she's still eating, she's enjoying herself over here.
I don't want to actually, my brother, when he was on
for the pasta last time?
For the pasta, and just kept eating, but I'm just going to keep eating.
She's going to keep eating. It runs in the family, that's okay.
It is. It's seriously so good, though.
Yeah.
So good, like the texture, like the overall flavor. It's like literally like the best chicken noodle soup I've ever had.
Yeah.
I really like it.
It's really, really fantastic. We love doing this kind of stuff, especially we've been sitting on the couch and watching movies, and this is going to be our dinner for the evening here before we head up to just go to bed. And it's nice, and we'll take the rest of it and put it in the fridge and have it for the next few days. So super cool. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I've already tasted it a couple of times, and it's fantastic, and that little bite that I just took was absolutely wonderful.
It's really good.
Thank you guys so much for watching. So down below, you're going to find a Patreon link, and you can do the Patreon sign up if you'd like to support the channel. If you don't want to go to Patreon, you can actually stay right here on YouTube, because I have brand new YouTube channel memberships, and those are super cool. So for my channel members and for my Patreon members, $5 and up, I'm doing extra videos. I'm going to be doing some extra recipes, like this kind of stuff, but what do you do to modify it to make this kind of chicken soup or that kind of chicken soup? Like cool stuff, or things that maybe, Ash just loves, like certain of my recipes, and she's like, oh, you got to share this one with people. And they may be just a tweak on other recipes I've done, but I'd love to show you guys in those groups just some of the cool things that I like to be creative with to do this and can keep the same recipes fresh. So I'm going to be doing some of that kind of stuff. If you're interested in some Chris Cooking Nashville swag, you can also go down below. There's a shop down there where you can get t-shirts and hats and cups, and there are aprons on there. I've had people asking me to sell aprons, but if you go and look in my shop, there's actually hundreds of products, including aprons. So if you want to have some Chris Cooking Nashville vibes in your kitchen, you can totally do that. There's also an Amazon affiliate link. That is a brand new thing. I just got approved for that and got that taken care of, but there's some folks asking for an Amazon affiliate link. So if you're going to buy egg white powder, if you're going to buy beef gelatin, if you're going to buy some kitchen gear, if you want to see what kinds of cool kitchen gadgets I like, just various things, as I see stuff that I think like, oh, that's really cool, that's really helpful, or it's something similar to what I use, I'm putting that in my Amazon shop. And as an affiliate, I get a small commission every time you guys buy stuff through my shop, but it does not change the price for you. So there's information down there about that as well. So those are all ways you guys can support the channel financially. If you don't want to do any of that, that's totally cool, I get that. But if you just give me a thumbs up on the video if you like the recipe, and if you will comment below, share this video with people, especially when you guys put it in like carnivore and keto and ketovore Facebook groups and stuff, that kind of stuff really helps, because it just tells people I'm here. and it just makes a huge difference for us. Things have grown wildly.
Very fast.
Had absolutely no idea that the YouTube channel was going to be this large this quickly by any means, and it's because of you guys just sharing and liking and commenting, and we just really appreciate that because it gives me a reason to continue doing this, and it just means a lot to me to know that this is important to you guys and that you like what we do. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Please go make this chicken noodle soup, especially if you have someone who's sick. You guys are keto, carnivore, any of those things. This is your answer, so you don't have to do that nasty stuff in a can anymore with all of the junk that comes with it.
You won't eat the stuff in the can anymore, I promise you. After you buy it, you'll get it, yeah.
Yeah, this is just so superior, I think. So I just hope you guys try this, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I can't tell you guys how much it means to me to have you all here, and for those of you in the band, I love you guys. Thank you for supporting this because it makes it so much easier for us to keep doing this. The fact that you do so much to support what we do, and we're a big family. We love you guys. So thank you guys for watching. From me and from my lovely wife and from the dog across the room who is waiting to be fed chicken noodle soup. We just want to say thank you guys. So this is Chris Cook in Nashville and Mrs. Chris Cook in Nashville. Eat your meat, love your life, and I'm going to see you guys in the kitchen on the next recipe.
Bye. Is that great?
You're hot.
Let's watch it back.
You're
Make sure you're good.
hot.